Hi and welcome or welcome back to my channel, Yarn at the Barn. My name is Manon and I'm a programmer, horsey girl and a knitter, and it's of course the knitting that we talk about here. So for today, like pretty much every other YouTube knitter out there, I wanted to do sort of a 2025 recap of everything I knit. And of course, some of that has been discussed in my nerdy knitting numbers video. If you've not seen that and you like Excel charts, then that is one for you. It's a little bit niche, but it's an insight in how much yarn I bought and what I did with it and conclusions I drew from that. But now I want to actually look at the garments that I knit. So that is this video. This was my first year of like knitting from patterns, and I was still fairly new to knitting, so it's not the hugest pile, but I was still kind of impressed. Which it's still it's still decent. There's also the sweater that I'm wearing, so if you add that to the pile, it adds like a bit of bulk, which is nice. Um, and there's quite a few accessories missing from here as well, which would have made it a little bit bigger. But most of the accessories that I knit, in fact, every accessory that I knit was a gift knit, and so I don't have any more because they've all been given away already. So there's a bit more than this, and those I don't always have the like best footage of them, or I'll try to add photos. But let's discuss. So before we start, grab yourself something warm and cozy to drink, and grab your knitting, and then let's dive in. So we're going to start in order of cast on, and so not of finished objects, or from when I finished them. And then there's a few things, well, there's two pieces that I did start in 2025 that I have not finished, so I'm still knitting on them, and those are not included in here, of course, because they're not finished. So the very first piece, but that I didn't document, is in fact lying over there. Let me get it. Here you come. Here you. So it's The Simple Thing by Molina Bell, and it's kind of what you would call a Sophie scarf. I have folded it double because otherwise I find it a little bit too big. And I think I started this in 2024, but I finished it in 2025. But I've not documented this. I only started documenting after finishing this. So I don't have exact stats on this. I know I knit this out of Hobie yarn, but I can't quite remember how much of it went in here, whether it's 2 or 3 skeins. It's like just one ball of mohair, and I did not even finish it, I think. Or did I? Maybe I did. Okay, it's too long ago. I can't remember, but officially, this should be part of this roundup, but I don't have any details on it, so we're not going to mention it after this. And it's not in the totals of how much I spent or anything, because I didn't document it. But this was supposed to be a gift knit, and I kept it for myself because one day I really needed a little scarf, and I thought I'll just wear it once, and then I will actually send it to the person this was for, and I never stopped wearing it. And it's been to the stables and everything with me, so it stinks. Probably, of course. I don't know. I have a cold, so I can't quite tell, but no one wants to have this. I can promise. So it's mine, and as a sort of a sorry, I knit another gift knit that we will talk about for the person this was for. But yeah, worn this a ton. Would definitely knit again. I think I knitted on like it's a DK, a bit over a DK that I used for this. I would knit it in something smaller to basically have the measurements of what it is now as being folded over, because that's just perfect for me. I like little thin scarves, apparently. So now we move on to stuff that has been documented. And then my first like garment that I knit was the Moby sweater, which is what I'm wearing. So it's a pattern by Petite Knit. I'm sure that everyone knows about this pattern, and it's sort of what got me to knit patterns. I was seeing lots of cable jumpers. I think it was on Pinterest, not quite on Instagram. I had knitted as a kid, sort of remembered how. Thought, okay, I'll just knit cable jumpers. How hard can it be? Did it without patterns. Massive fail, of course. Twisted all my stitches. At some point, realized that I was not going to work. And so decided to buy a pattern and try and follow that. And the Moby sweater is one that I really like the look of. And so decided to do that. So that was my very first garment knitting from a pattern, which actually worked quite well. So that was way before I started this YouTube channel. So this has not been documented before. So I'm going to talk a bit more about this than the other pieces that have been talked about in the knitting episodes that I have done this year. But yeah, there's a few things I would do differently. I think it was a great knit as a first very adventurous knit. So of course I had done cables before without patterns, so it's not like that was completely new to me. If someone was a complete beginner, they still had to learn stockinette, purling, and then also cables. That would be a bit too much, so I would not necessarily recommend it. But if you've done a little bit of it, you've maybe swatched a bit, you are getting the hang of a cable pattern, then this is not super hard. I don't think there's German short rows on this. If I do remember correctly, I think it's just increases in the back. And so it's not that hard really. But I think mohair or something from the scarf. It's really not a difficult pattern to follow. It's very petite knit, what can I say? Which is great. The first patterns that I did knit are all from Petite Knit, you're going to see. And the few things I would do differently. So, didn't have a lot of experience with yarn, so I chose just a wool that I would still recommend, which is the Hobie Friends wool. If you don't have a very large budget, it's a really nice. They have lots of colors. It feels really nice. When washed, it becomes it's a little bit like Peer Gynt. It's not the same, of course, but it's a little bit that kind of feel. It's maybe a little bit itchy when you knit with it, and then you wash it, and the more you wash it, the softer it becomes. Also looks quite nice, I think, in cables. So overall great, but mohair was quite new to me. I had knitted with brushed alpaca before. I had free-handed a hat for my mum for that Christmas, and that was incredibly fluffy but soft, and I really loved that. But it was too fluffy to do on this. But I found that mohair seemed to be very expensive, and Hobie, where I used to do all my yarn buying back then, it's only a year ago, but has this sort of a dupe for mohair, which is mostly non-natural fibers. I can't remember what it is, but I think 60 or 70% of it is like acrylic, polyamide, etc. And it's not soft. So when you've never touched proper mohair before, it does feel soft. So I thought, oh, this is a lovely little cloud and it's great. And so I loved it, and so I bought lots of it, which I still have in stash, which I'm probably never going to use. But I used it in this sweater because I wanted to pair the wool with the mohair because I like the slightly fluffy look on the Petite Knit pictures. So I thought I need to add something that is fluffy, and this yarn, I think it's called Diablo, does give you that. I mean, you can see there's a tiny bit of fluff. So yes, it works, but if you're a little bit sensitive to itchiness, then you will hate this. It doesn't make it softer. If anything, it makes it itchier, I think. So I'm not super sensitive to it. So I'm fine. And the more I wash this jumper, the better it sort of becomes. But I will never use it again. At least not in a garment. Maybe for like a piece that is gonna get used a lot, as in outside, and for like maybe a dog sweater. If you wanted mohair in a dog sweater or something like that, it might make sense. But in general, not a big fan anymore. But it's easy to fall for it at first because it's so much cheaper than mohair. I can't remember how much it was, but it was like half, if not more, than mohair. So it was very easy to fall for, oh, this will do, without having touched mohair before. That's like yarn wise, fabric wise, what this did. And then I said I would do two things differently. I would do three things differently. So I would change the yarn. I would probably go for something like the recommended yarn, which is I think Sunday or double Sunday paired with a mohair. So a merino, so something that is much softer. I think that would make this a lot better. I almost bought some merino to do that, but I stopped myself because knitting the same pattern twice is not going to be the most engaging thing for me. And so I think I will always pick a different project to do instead of doing that. So did not buy the yarn. The two other things I would do differently is this was the first pattern that the first garment that I knit from pattern, and I really like the oversized look in the pictures, and I clearly did not read the pattern well enough because I thought, oh, to get the oversized look I need to knit a bigger size, and I didn't read that in the pattern. It does say that it has a certain amount of positive ease. It's supposed to be oversized, so if you knit a size S, for example, what I could have done, then it will look like a jumper in size L from a store, for example. This is oversimplifying it, but you get what I mean. I did not understand the concept of positive ease and what it would do. So I knitted a size L, and it's quite big. It's not so big that I can't wear it. It's not so big that I don't wear it. But it could have looked a lot better, I think, in a size M or S. So for me, so like one or two sizes down from what I did. Also, I think it's with age, it's only gonna like get a bit looser, so it's not gonna get any better in the future, unfortunately. So yeah, that was one thing that I kind of learned. It was a slow lesson because the garment after this, I didn't knit an L, but I knitted M, and I should have done an S. So I was slowly getting to it. The third thing I would do differently is the color. I like, very kind of like simple neutral colors and like jeweled colors. And the problem with neutral colors is, in terms of color palettes, this is not what looks best on me. I really like it as a color, but in certain light, so now it looks quite beigey on screen, which is what I was going for, and not thinking about, yeah, but is this actually something that is going to look good on, that is going to make you look good? I need something that is a bit of a deeper color to make it, look better on me. But in certain light, this looks a little bit pinkish as well, and I don't really like that. I didn't realize when I got the yarn, I just thought, oh, this is the color I wanted, so this works. And then paired with the mohair, it does something. Oh, the dupe mohair, it sort of does something, and then with certain light, and it's not amazing. So yeah, beginner mistake maybe. Also started to pay more attention to colors that actually work on me a little bit more during this year. So yeah, I made a mistake, learned from it. Now I have a garment that is just, it's okay. It's fine. I wear it. especially in winter, it's nice and warm and it's very relaxed. So I wear it a lot at home, I would say. I also wear, because it's not perfect or it doesn't get close to perfect, I do wear it to go to the stables as well, if I don't have to ride, but just like feed the horses or something like that, as long as I'm not going to sweat in it too much. Yeah, so I get quite a lot of wear out of it. I was hoping that it would make me happier, but that is what it is. And then in terms of how this yarn wears, the wool pills like on the inside of, I can't really show you, but on the inside of the ribbing at the bottom on the hem, that's where the wool is pilling. And I have another garment in this wool that does the same thing, but like under the arms and stuff, it's remarkably good for the price that it is. The one thing is this mohair is really not, it's definitely a dupe mohair, and it's very much a cheap dupe mohair. It's starting to create these little, I don't know if you can see it. It's getting like little tails where the mohair sort of like creates these little, well, it's the mohair is pilling, but it doesn't create these little balls. It sort of creates these tails. And it's not just doing that here, it's doing it a bit like all over the garment. But that's not amazing. Price wise, this was exceedingly cheap, less than 50 euros. I mean, just about, by 55 cents, but still. So I'm quite happy with that. I mean, it's not perfect, but at least it didn't cost too much. And that is the total for the yarn and the pattern. So, not too bad. And then for the amount of days, I have to check. So it took me 62 days to knit this one. Or it was on my needle for 62 days, but I think I still knit this one very much monogamously. So yeah, that is how much time it took me. But I mean, it's quite a big size, and it was my first garment from a pattern. So in this type of yarn that I finished. Before that, I did a ginormous sweater, but in very bulky yarn that I finished and I never wore because it's unwearable. Okay, so that was that for this one. Let's move on to the next one, which is the honey bucket bag. And that was a present for my best friend's birthday, which was quite a long time ago. So I do not have it anymore. It has been gifted quite some time ago. So I'll insert some pictures of what the finished object looked like. This is once again a pattern by Petite Knit, and it's honeycomb brioche, so it's not super fast. But what was quite fun about this is that I, well, didn't gauge swatch. Didn't do a gauge. Oh, did I do a gauge swatch for this one? Might have, but I definitely didn't for the honey bucket bag. And the nice thing about that is that I just made sure that the bottom of it, you start at the bottom, you make a little circle, and then you increase until you have the size of the bottom that you want. And because it's a round bottom, you can make it as big or small as you want by just adding rounds. So that is quite nice and easy. If you're not on gauge, you can fix it by adding a few rounds or doing a few less, so that you get the size of bag that you want. It gives you what diameter it should be. So it was easy to that way use the yarn I wanted to use and still get the dimensions that I wanted, because I bought the liner from the Petite Knit website and also the chain for the bag. So yeah, was definitely not on gauge. I was way under, but I just made it bigger that way. And then the honeycomb brioche, I mean, it's brioche, so it's quite slow. I could, for the life of me, not redo honeycomb brioche now. I would have to rewatch a tutorial. I completely forgot how to do it. I just remember that it was quite slow, but it was very satisfying as like a second project to see this really fun stitch pattern appear. So as an accessory, definitely recommend this one. I kind of want to knit one like the bigger version for myself as a project bag, but not in the same yarn because it was I think fingering paired with once again the mohair dupe, and for a project bag I would be fine with that, but I would want to knit it at a bigger gauge because I've discovered how slow brioche is and I've discovered how fast other stitches are, and I think it might be a bit difficult to motivate me, I guess. So loved it while doing it. Made a few changes. I think it says to do there's something about the brim where it's knitted that you're supposed to break the yarn and then pick up the stitches from the inside, and I don't know, there's something that is a bit different, and I managed to somehow do that without breaking the yarn and just doing a couple rows of double knitting to have a nice little fold at the top, and then just continue knitting and then knitting it down for the top of the, I don't know what you call it, sort of band where the drawstrings are going to be in, so the top bit of that, and then you continue knitting, and then I knitted it down again and bound it off for the bottom of that, because I couldn't be bothered to break the yarn and then pick up stitches, and there was definitely an easier way of doing that. I would have to re-knit this to retrace my steps exactly, because this is all I remember. But I remember having a lot of fun with that one. So as an accessory, would definitely recommend. I'm not sure how much wear she's getting out of it. I think she's a bit precious about it, and it stays a bit at home because she doesn't want to get it dirty or anything. I did do that in superwash wool. I used the, again, Hobie yarn, extra fine merino, and so that's a fingering weight, but it's superwash, and then the mohair is all polyamide, etc. Anyway, so it's fairly easy to wash. But so I don't know how it looks now. I've not actually seen her wear it, but she lives like 250 kilometers from here, so it's not like we see each other every day. And then for costs, once again, Hobie yarn, so it wasn't very expensive. The knitting part of the bag cost me €22, but that is without the lining from the Petite Knit website and the chain, and I just can't remember how much those were. But they are still being sold on the Petite website, I think, so you can get those there. Quality-wise, definitely would get the liner, etc. from her website again, because it was just good quality. And I can sew. I have a sewing machine. I could not be bothered to make the liner myself. So I was very, what is the word? Lazy. I was very lazy. And then in terms of days, this was on my needles for 37 days. And that is because that's when I started to do more than one project at the same time. So I did not knit on this like every day for 37 days. I do remember that. But yeah, I remember having quite a bit of fun enjoying making this one. And then the next one is a garment, once again, that I do still have with me. This is the Ida Tee, again by Petite Knit. We're going to get to non-Petite Knit patterns soon, I promise. But this is a t-shirt. So we're starting to get to the warmer season. So it was April, and she put up this pattern. This is for a t-shirt, and as you can see, it's massive. What mistake have I made again? And I really like the look of it on her Instagram pictures, and so I decided that I could easily knit a garment and an accessory at the same time, and I wanted to try to have more than one project at the same time, see if I would enjoy that. So I bought the pattern, and I got the yarn for this. I got too much yarn, I believe, and I made this. So a few things I would do differently. Size-wise, it's supposed to be a summer t-shirt, and normally a wear more fitted t-shirts than this. I mean, you can see it's enormous. So it's sort of a very relaxed look t-shirt, but because it's warm, it has mohair, it basically looks like an oversized pajama. So that's too bad because it's super soft and super nice. So yeah, and it was really, the pattern is really entertaining. Okay, let me be careful with the candle here. I don't want to burn my knits. But you have the little eyelets, and then you do a bit of stockinette, and then you change for like 2 rounds of color, and then you do a bit more of stockinette, and then you have the eyelets again. So it's very entertaining. Very fun project, also very beginner friendly, I would say. I'm not sure if this is the first one I did with short rows. Let me see on the inside if I can see any short rows. Yes, this was my first short row pattern. And I mean, I'm really terrified of the candle here. I don't think you can see where the short rows are so much. It looks... no, I think it looks... On one side you can see it a little bit, on the other side you can't. There's still a few things that not perfect, and there's the little like pearl bump around the neck that I'm not sure I would do again. I'm not sure I like that look, but that is what the pattern called for, so I did it. But yeah, size, I should have gone a size down, or maybe 2 even. Yarn wise, this is once again Hobie yarn. We will get out of the Hobie yarn soon, I promise, as well. But this is the extra fine merino, so superwash, which I thought was a good idea for a t-shirt. And this is drops mohair. So by then I had realized that there were softer mohairs, or that actual mohair was better. So it's drops mohair. It sheds a little bit, not too much. I've heard like horror stories about drops mohair, and I have in fact one garment, my knit cardigan, that I'm still working on. For some reason, those balls of mohair shed like crazy, and it's red, so it gets everywhere, and you see it everywhere. This one, I think it was like the champagne or marzipan colorway, and I've used it in different projects, and it sheds a little bit, but not as bad as the red one. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe different batches do different things, but it's a very nice, squishy, soft fabric, and it feels just really nice. So in terms of the fabric, amazing, really happy with it. Would I knit again in superwash? For a t-shirt, maybe. For jumpers, probably not. But this is way too warm. For a summer t-shirt, knitting mohair and wool is just a terrible idea. So if I did this one again, this exact pattern, I would probably choose like a cotton merino from Knitting for Olive, for example. I've used that in a different project that we're going to talk about in a bit. And that is so light and soft. And yes, there's wool in there as well, but the feel is so different. I'm not sure I'm ready for pure cotton, but pure wool and mohair, no, not for summer. So I do wear this, but not in the midst of summer. And I don't wear it as much as I thought I was going to wear it because of this like eyelet detail. The more I wash it, the less this problem occurs. But when you wear it, I can't really demonstrate it here because the eyelets are a bit, the fabric there is a little bit stronger than the stockinette. If this is resting on your pants, on your hips, your butt, whatever, then it sort of forms. You can, oh, now it does show it a bit. You get this sort of like accordion forming where the stockinette will sort of go inside and the eyelets are sort of sticking out. And so you end up looking like an accordion. And especially on that part of your body, like on your tummy area, not the best look. but it's not what I'm really going for. So I also made it longer than the pattern asked for. And if I hadn't done that, then if it was a bit more cropped, it wouldn't rest as much on my hips, and so it would not create that. I'm never going to go back and redo it because I can't be bothered. I'll prefer to knit a new one then. But so it creates it yeah. It doesn't make me feel the most beautiful, sexy, or whatever you want to call it, confident when I wear this. So I end up wearing this one at home quite a bit or underneath something that is not going to be worn open. But usually that's a bit too warm over this. So really lovely to wear, but I don't want my belly to be seen in this. So that's too bad. But yeah, pattern wise, definitely recommend if you want something that is a bit different from your average t-shirt. Don't choose the yarn that I chose for it if you want to wear this in summer. And then before we move on to the next one, let's just look at the costs real quickly. So total yarn cost and pattern combined was €46.55. And let me check, this was on the needles for 35 days. So not too bad. I think this was my first garment with like a fingering weight yarn. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is quite a bit slower, but also really enjoying it. And I still enjoy knitting with fingering weight yarn. I think it's still my favorite. It's too bad that it's slower than knitting with a DK or worsted or anything more. But I really like the way it looks and the way it feels, like the feel of that kind of fabric. Then the next cast on that I actually finished, because after that I did cast on the Knit cardigan and it's still not finished. But the next one that I cast on is, I don't know, at some point I must have realized that the Knit cardigan was very slow and I did want a cardigan. And so I cast on the Champagne cardigan by Petite Knit. It is for now the last Petite Knit pattern, and then at the end of the year I've got one more. But hold on, you can do this. Nothing bad to say about this one. The pattern is very, very clear. It's quite easy. You do not knit the button band at the same time as the cardigan, which you do for the Knit cardigan, which is nice because then you don't have to do that afterwards. But I remember reading online that quite a lot of people struggled with doing that. I think I did it in like 2 days and I actually enjoyed it because I could make so much progress so fast. The only thing is you need a really long cable because you need to pick up all the stitches. So from one bottom, where is it? No, that's a sleeve. So all the way from this side, over the neck and all the way down the other side. And then on one side you have to do the buttonholes, but it's all really well documented with all the videos on Petite Knit website on how to do this. And yeah, easy, breezy, lovely, would recommend 100%. I'm a lot happier with the yarn choice that I made for this one. So this is the other garment that I knit in Hobie Friends Wool, and I combined it with the Drops mohair. And this is really nice, really soft. It gets softer with wear and with more washing. Is it the absolute softest? Is it like a merino soft? No, but it's a cardigan and I usually wear it over something with long sleeves even usually. I've not had any problems with itchiness or anything. It's very soft. I like to drape a lot. It's quite flowy. It's not the lightest garment. I mean, it's a DK, so not super, super light. But for the weight it has, it's quite flowy. I like it. This is probably my most worn piece of what I've knit. Because, okay, it's a cardigan, so it's more versatile in terms of season. The sweater will keep you warmer but then you'll get too warm at some point, and the cardigan you can open and then the warmth sort of escapes. Or if you feel a bit cold, you can close it again, and then it's nice and cozy. And so I am thinking that I should knit more cardigans because I wear them a lot. But knitting in the round is so nice. So, loved it. Really loved knitting this one. I say I would knit again, but I'm not a big fan of knitting a pattern twice, so not sure I actually would. I was going to knit a second one for my mum because that's for her birthday. But she has realized she wants to be able to wear this under her coat, and the champagne cardigan is quite oversized. It has a very deep armhole. So my finger here is the shoulder. This is the armhole. It's big. And so she has realized this is not ideal to wear under a coat that has quite a tight or not a very large armhole. And she just bought a new coat and it is relatively tight. And we realized it was not ideal. So I think we found another pattern with like some sort of the same sort of construction and also a v-neck and the same sort of yarn, but I need to double check a few things, so I'm not going to tell you yet what that one is going to be. But yeah, big fan of this one. So I've worn this one a lot more than this, so I can show you without burning it in the candle, I hope, how it pills, how the hem is pilling at the back. And so this is on the inside. Terrified of the candle here, but there you go. You can sort of see it makes really big pills, but this is on the inside of the cardigan, so no one is seeing this. And on the outside, okay, I'm going to move the candle because it's really lovely and cozy, but I don't want to burn a hole in my garments. This is quite, it's not easy to show. So this is the outside, and it started to pill just a little bit, but not those big ones that you see on the inside. It's a huge difference, and of course the inside rubs against my butt or my hips or whatever, that part of my body, all the time. And also if I'm sitting in a chair and against the back of the chair, then there's also going to be a bit of rubbing there. But I am surprised that there's not more pilling on this, considering the price of the yarn. I mean, I think it's like 2 or 3 euros per ball. Then this is really not too bad. There's no pilling at the underarm. There's like nothing. It's just, I wouldn't say it's perfect. You can see it's starting a little bit here and there to have a bit of like a bit more wool in some places, but it's not pills yet. So yeah, I'm really amazed. I'm not sure I want to keep on using Hobie yarn. I will use the Hobie yarn that I have in stash. And for like small little gift knits, it's quite handy and cheap. But I don't really want to support the big brand like that. That is not necessarily, I mean, for those prices, can you really pay everyone included in the manufacturing of your product a fair price, and can you guarantee that the animals will have a good life and will be treated well? They don't guarantee that. They don't put that on their website or anything, so that makes me think that maybe they don't. And that is the part that I'm like, okay, then I prefer to pay some more money, but to a company that does respect the people and the animals. So yeah, recommend the wool. Not sure I can recommend the shop. And then last but not least, the total cost for this sweater was 55 euros. And how long was on my needles for? 44 days. Bloody hell, that was fast. I really enjoyed knitting that one. That is maybe my last comment. I think I knit a size S. but I made the sleeves a little bit longer, and they're a bit too long now. So I've just folded the cuff double so that they're not too long. So that is a note to myself: don't knit them longer. And it's very big. You can, I think it's totally possible to go down an extra size, so knit a size under what you usually do. So for me, I'm usually between a size S or M, so depending on the designer or the garment, how much positive ease it's supposed to have. And in this case, if I'd knit this again, I would knit an XS with this yarn combo. So depending on your gauge swatch. But if you're sort of on the fence, I would advise go down a size because it's already quite oversized and it's very big. Okay, on to the next one, which is the Amy slipover. Also, it looks a bit weird here, but it has ties on the side. This is a pattern by Sandnes Garn. It comes in a little booklet. You can't buy it by itself, so you have to buy the entire booklet. I bought my booklet because I know it's sold out in quite a lot of places, but I bought mine from the Breiboerderij, which is a Dutch web shop. And if I'm not mistaken, they still have some. So if you want to buy one, they ship internationally. Why do I put it away? I'm still talking about it. Enjoyed knitting this one. It was not in the round. It was flat because it's a slipover, so it's completely open on the sides. And yeah, I prefer to knit in the round. It's not terrible, but it was a bit slower than I anticipated, in part because of that. I really love the yarn choice. This was the first time that I tried knitting for Olive, and because it didn't use, it's, I think, 4, let me double check. Yes, it is 4 balls of merino, the knitting for Olive merino, and 4 balls of mohair. So that was quite an affordable-ish project to start with knitting for Olive. I mean, by this time, I had started this channel, but I was also watching lots of other knitting podcasts. And I mean, knitting for Olive was left, right, and center. And it seemed really nice. And so I was like, okay, I'd like to try it. But I didn't want to straight away buy a sweater quantity of it. I was still coming from hobby, so with very low prices, and knitting for Olive seemed very expensive compared to that. And so it was quite a big jump, and this was a nice way of starting. So getting a smaller quantity of yarn to first try it out, realize it was very, very nice, realize that the knitting for Olive merino was softer than the drops merino. What am I saying? Not merino, mohair. So that there's different mohairs, and different merinos as well, and it felt very nice to knit with. The colors were really amazing. I mean, the choice of knitting for Olive is just great. This looks very red, by the way. On this screen, in real life, it's a lot. There we go. This is a bit more like it. It's a bit darker. I knitted in like a lighter mohair than the. Am I saying that right? Yeah, the mohair is claret and the merino is bordeaux, and so there's a little bit of marling that goes on, and I really like that. That's what I was going for. I have documented everything that I did with this one in my various knitting podcasts. So if you are wondering what I did differently on this one, I did some. The main difference, I think, is how I shaped a little bit like the shoulders, I guess you could call it, and the collar. Wait, I had moved the candle back, but the collar is something that I really like how I've done it. So it's the little shaping here around the collar. I'm just really happy with how that looks, and that is not how it's described in the pattern. So check out those knitting podcasts, and I'm not sure how well I documented this on the Ravelry page for this. no promises. I'll try and do better this year to actually put my. I've started doing that. Really write down my modifications in my notes, and then when I put it on Ravelry, I add all those notes for myself. But others, if you like what you see, then you can reproduce it. Other than that, I don't think I did a lot of. I wasn't really happy with the bind offs, I remember, and now when I look at it, I'm like, well, it doesn't look too bad, really. Oh yeah, no, the back one is terrible. Front one is okay. I did 2 different ones. I tried different things. So this was a great learning opportunity. So that is my, I would say, main takeaway from knitting this piece. One last little note, but I think that's pretty well known, is that the Sandnes Garn patterns are not very verbose. There's not a lot of hand holding. So if this would be your first project, maybe don't start with a Petite Knit project, I think. There's a lot more explanation and hand holding and videos to teach you every step of the way. With the Sandnes Garn pattern, it's you basically have to do this, but figure out how to do it neatly. Have fun. So yeah, I was fine doing this, but this was obviously not my first piece. And there's a few things I would do differently now, and there's a few things I did differently because of my experience with the various knits I did before that. So yeah. After this one, I cast on the Orchid Bloom pullover. It's not ready. It's behind me. It's right there, and it's going really well. I've not cast on anything new yet. When this will go live, it will, but I need to measure my husband to know what size he is to cast on his sweater. That's basically why I've not started it yet. And then, so by then, it's summer, and I'm knitting on like winter garments basically, and I wanted to knit something summery. And so I was okay. No, a little bit more backdrop before I show you this because I'm really proud of it. I really love it. Cezanne had this top that they came out with this summer, well, last summer, I guess, and it was this beautiful lace top with buttons in the front, and I loved it, but I thought it was way too much money for a top. So I was like, I'm not buying that, but you could do this with knitting. So I was keeping an eye out for patterns that would look like that, or that I could modify to make it look like that, or trying to think how I would construct something to make it work. So to sort of freehand something like that. By then I had also gotten a book, Japanese knitting Bible. I forgot the author's name, I'm sorry. And I had lots of patterns in them like that. I thought, okay, I can combine a few of these patterns and make it look like this top from Cezanne or something close. Reproduce the idea that I loved. And then I came across a pattern that is basically exactly that top with the little buttons in the front, with the sort of like crocheted edge all around it, with the beautiful lace all over it. And I mean, it was perfect. And I've not buttoned it down, so now it looks terrible. But this, let me button it up because it looks terrible. And you're really missing it out by not seeing it the way it's supposed to look. But this is a pattern by Chantal Cardigan. So that is a French pattern designer, but her patterns are or were translated in English. I don't know if the latest one is, but this one is, and this is the Hawaii top. And so it's knitted bottom up. Don't worry, it's not that bad. But because of the buttons in the front, you have to knit the lace. You have to knit the lace like back and forth. So that is a little bit harder than knitting it in a round because then you have to reverse the chart in your head for like what row is like instead what is the reverse of an SSK, for example, and stuff like that. If you have more experience, you'll think, oh, that is easy. But If you don't, then it was a little bit of a journey. But definitely, my advice would be, what works for me is do a very good gauge swatch. Practice on there, and when you're not making mistakes again anymore, then you can move on to this. So this, oh, show it to you properly, is the Hawaii top, and I've not blocked it yet. I realized when I tried this on for like the B-roll. It's so nice. So it's in cotton merino from Knitting for Live, and it's so light. It's just this really summery fabric. The only problem is, by the time I finished it, autumn had started. There was one nice week when I finished it, and then the weather just turned. And so I've not worn this yet. Which is really too bad because it's super beautiful. I really love it. And it's perfect, and I'm so proud of myself for doing it. I mean, I made buttons. If you had told me like a year ago that I would make buttons, I would not have believed you. I did, and it's easier than you think. And so it's quite a verbose pattern, I would say. Which, I mean, there's written explanations, there's charts, there's schematics, and there's all of it. So you can also just print the pages of the stuff that you want, that you need, and then it becomes a lot smaller. But there's also quite a lot of videos which were really helpful for how to do this little crochet edging, and how to do buttons, and how to do these little, whatever they're called, I think, no, it's not butterfly, but éventail in French, which is like when it's hot and you use something to like blow air on. I can't remember what the word is. Anyway, I'll put it on the screen and I'll feel silly later for remembering. But lots of little techniques on here. I messed up the way I did the knit two together, I think, on the like armhole sides, but it's not super visible. It's okay. It's just I created like an extra line when they shouldn't, as in all the stitches go up where they should have just not done that. It's fine. It doesn't look exactly as it should, but it's close enough. And this, oh, and I messed up the very top here. I counted wrong, and so I made two little extra little bumps here, and it doesn't look quite nice. So I will try before next summer to do a sneaky little button here, so that it does look the way it's supposed to, and not with two extra bumps there. I would knit this one again. I would knit this in black, because I think that would look awesome. I think with the white, then you have to wear like a, well, you don't have to, but to make it look the nicest, then I would probably want to wear it with a skin colored bra. And those things are just, I don't like wearing them because I don't feel, I guess they're just not very nice or beautiful or anything. Maybe I just don't have the right one, but I'm not a big fan of that. And because there's so much lace, I have to wear a bra underneath it. So color-wise, yes, it's very summery, very light, but I think I would like a darker color, and I would wear it more. Not that I've worn this one yet, but you know, I think that might be something I do this summer, because I think that would be really, really nice. In terms of costs, that was only 3 balls of Knitting for Live cotton merino, so it wasn't very expensive. Let me double check where it is. Yeah, €27.18 instead of, I think Cézanne's was like 75 or more. So that's a steal. You just have to knit it yourself, but you know, it's a small price to pay. And it was on my needles for 43 days. At first, I thought it was going really, really fast, and then all the finishings take quite a bit of time to do. You have to do all the edgings, So that's all in crochet. And don't worry, there's tutorials for it in the pattern, so it's not too bad. It's just, it's new, so it takes longer. There's the buttons to do, and there's the button band, not the button bands, what am I saying? The shoulder straps to do as well, and that's an I-cord on both sides. So nothing super hard, but there's lots of little things to do, which creates a really beautiful pattern, garment. So 100% recommend. Once again, don't get scared because the pattern has a lot of pages. Just print the ones that you want or that you need, if you are printing it at all. And yeah, definitely love that one. Would knit it again. Actually would knit it again, which is possibly a very big compliment coming from me. The next one I knit was a gift knit. I don't have it anymore. Is the Salarium hat by Rachel Elsie. So that's unwind knitwear. And this was very fast. I used a hand-dyed yarn for this one, and that is just, it's a tôle matin yarn, which I have raved about before on this channel. Sorry for doing it again, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And I used, I think, only half the skein. I thought I was going to need more, but I've got quite a bit of it left. So I could knit something else with the rest of that. I think there must be like 60 grams left or something like that. So that is nice, but it's like a fingering weight yarn, and the yarn I use from Tôle Matin, so there's lots. I think she has over 50 different bases that you can choose from, and then choose your favorite color on it. But this one is 70% merino, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. So very nice, very soft. And I mean, that pattern is just amazing. It's so, so beautiful. If that would be your first hat, I would say maybe don't. But if you like a bit of lace and cables and something quite intricate that really keeps you entertained, then this is amazing, because it's not going to be that long to knit. It's just a hat. It's not even double folded or anything. But yeah, the cables are so beautiful, and it's so lovely to watch it become something while you're knitting it. So this one, I only counted half the skein. So the skein cost me 27 euros, but I counted half of it because I've got like more than half left over. And so half of the skein plus the pattern costs was 18 euros and 55 cents. And it only took me 7 days to knit this one. That was during a holiday, so I was doing quite a bit of knitting. So yeah, it's not the fastest knit, not the fastest hat to knit, just as a word of warning, but it's an amazing gift. And then my next cast on is the last garment of the year, and this is the Highland sweater. And this was a test knit for A&O Knits, and I love it. I've not worn it yet, so I can't tell you about how it wears. I blocked it, when was it? New Year, I don't know, 31st of December. And so it was ready to try on the 1st of January. It's the 4th of January now. I'm recording this video a bit earlier because of holiday plans, etc. So that I can already get this ready before I really start the holiday. But so I've not worn this one yet. Well, I've tried it on. It feels really nice. The wool is de Rerum Natura Gilead with de Rerum Natura Berenice, and it's really nice. It's softened up with washing or with blocking, however you want to call it. I did not like pin it or anything because the measurements were already correct for what I wanted. So it was just washing, really. Anyway, I really love this color. I mean, can you see the difference with that one? And I really love the cable pattern. When I saw it, I had plans for winter or for autumn. I started this in autumn. I had made plans, ambitious, very ambitious plans, to be honest. But when I saw this, the plans got completely derailed because this was awesome. And I had never done a test knit before, and I thought, why not? This would be really fun, and it looks beautiful, and I would really, really want to knit this one. And I got picked. I'm really, really happy. Very nice pattern. It's like the way I like it, not too verbose, not too much hand holding, but just the right amount of what you should do. Did I do different things in here? Yes, I'm sure I did, and I talked about that in last week's video. So if you want to have some of the details, if you want to have like a step-by-step everything I did, then rewatch the knitting podcast ever since the end of October. But then last week I had a few the main changes I made on this one, and I have actually put everything on the Ravelry page for this one. I will link that down below as well, so you can find it if you want to knit this beautiful one. So I'm looking forward. This one is coming on holiday with me to the snow, and so I'm expecting to wear this one quite a bit in the next few weeks. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, it's really soft, and I love the color. Then, in terms of cost and time, this was my most expensive project of the year by far. This one cost me, so I didn't pay for the pattern because it was a test knit, so it's just the yarn, and it cost me 123 euros. That's quite a lot, and I bought more yarn than that because I thought I was going to need a bit more. Also, it was a test knit, so wasn't 100% sure about the quantities, didn't want to play yarn chicken, ended up using less than what the pattern initially said. And I spent 56 days on this one. So considering all the cables, it's not bad. I thought I was gonna, when I started it, it felt like it was going really, really fast. And then there was sort of this moment where it got a little bit slower. Also, when I did a couple of gift knits as well, so that helped with slowing it down. And then towards the end, I sort of finished the sleeves, what felt like really fast. I guess that's maybe like a common pattern in terms of speed for knitting a sweater, is that the first progress, you went from nothing to having something, so it feels like quite a lot. And then you have to do the entire body, and you might have knit 3 centimeters, but 3 centimeters on an entire sweater doesn't look like much, but it's quite a bit. And then once you get into the sleeves, bit by bit, it starts to really look like what you want it to look like, and so it's motivating, and you knit maybe a bit more on it than you did while doing on the body, or it looks like you're doing more because it's a smaller circumference. I don't know. Wild theory here, but I have a feeling this is not the first time that it feels like that. Moving on to the next one, we're almost there. We just have 3 more knits, which I don't have with me because they were all gift knits. So the first one is the Patronus Mittens, and that was a gift knit for my Secret Santa person, receiver, however you want to call it, and I basically messed up. I thought she was a huge fan of Harry Potter. Turns out she wasn't. At least she had finally watched a couple of Harry Potter films like a few weeks before, so she knew what Harry Potter was about. But that was very, very silly. But yeah, made her Patronus mittens, which are like 100% Harry Potter themed. Great. But I really enjoyed knitting this pattern. This pattern is a free pattern, so you can find it on Ravelry, and there's not a lot of explanations, but if you have knitted 1 or 2 garments, or not necessarily garments, but a little bit before, read up a little bit on color work. It was my first color work, so I watched a few videos about like color dominance and how to hold the yarn. Like just a few basics, and it was fine. I swatched for it as well, so that helped me practice the color work. And it was a lot of fun. It's mittens. It's not very big. It's quite a small circumference, so you have to actually like doing that kind of stuff. But I really liked it. I loved seeing the pattern emerge, like the color thing, motif. So yeah, lots of fun. I would knit that again. Also, it's sort of a basic chart. So if you want to make a non-Harry Potter themed mitten, you can also just take the amount of stitches, like how much wide, how much high, and design your own mitten. That is something that I might do for my dad, in fact, for his birthday. Um, he's a big Star Wars and Lord of the Rings fan and lots of other things, but um, the original big nerd in the family. Um, and I kind of want to do, I thought, do like on both, well, like this, the map of Middle Earth going from one hand to the next if he holds them like next to each other like that. But I'm not sure if it will look great in knitting. I don't know, I could always try just make a swatch and then see, but that is one idea I have. If you have a great Lord of the Rings or Star Wars themed mitten that you know of, please comment them down below. I'm open for inspiration. He also really likes scarves, but I would prefer to knit him some mittens than a scarf. Scarf's just going to be a little bit boring because it's going to be like a long scarf and a long rectangular scarf, and there's no lace in it or anything. And I would prefer the mittens. So yeah, if you know of any patterns, I'm all ears. Then in terms of how much this cost, so it was a free pattern, and it was I knitted with the Hobie Friends wool. That was very cheap. I mean, it was around Black Friday, so I got a very good deal, and so both mittens only ended up costing me €4.67. So yeah, the price of the gift is in the hours I put in. Let's just say like that. And I knit this pretty fast. I mean, it was 16 days for both mittens, but I ordered the wrong color yarn at first. So I first did the ribbed cuff for both mittens, and then I had to wait until I got the right color to be able to start the color work. So there's a few days in there where I did not knit on them, but that was just what the start date was, and the end date was when I finished them and not before that. So that is that. But you can knit a mitten like that in like 2-3 days easily. And that is like working days, so when you also do work and stuff like that. It's it's a nice, fun, fast gift to make. Definitely recommend mittens as a gift. Gift knit. Then last two. And then the first one of these two, I don't have a lot of pictures of because this was a self-drafted hat for one of my colleagues. I knit during meetings, some not all of the time, but sometimes. And so every time I would pull out my knitting to knit, he would ask me, "Oh, can you knit something for me?" I was like, "I'm not knitting you a garment. There's no way. You're nice, but no." But yeah, I get on really well with him. So I was like, okay, I will knit you something at some point. And every quarter we have the 2 Thursdays is sort of like prep day. So you plan what you're going to do in the next 3 months. And usually what happens during the 3 months that follow is that you do other things as well. And so the planning changes anyway. But management likes to have an idea what we're going to do apparently. So we try and tell them in 2 days. But so that's lots of meeting time, lots of like talking about what the different things are that we need to do and how complex they are, etc. I'm not going to bore you anymore, but it means 2 days of meetings. And in order to not fall asleep, I need to be knitting. And so what I told my colleague is that I would knit him something during those 2 days, and it would have to be within those 2 days. I would not knit after it or in the evening. It was just during the meetings. And so I spend 2 days at the office knitting and talking a lot during the meetings, but knitting a hat. And I used yarn I had in stash from Hobie that I had used and ordered for like that really big bulky sweater that I made without a pattern and that is unwearable. And I used what I had left over or never even touched from that for a hat. I looked at what the gauge was. sort of figured out how many stitches I needed to have and figured out like a decrease rate for the top of it with that kind of gauge. You can look up like free patterns of hats at certain gauges on Ravelry, and then you get a global idea of what you would want, what kind of shape you want. And so I looked at a few different things, figured out what I wanted, and knit the Remco hat. I did not write up exactly what I did, but it's just fairly simple. This one cost me €5.26, and so it was on the needles for 2 days. I started it one day and I finished it the next day, and I just took a couple of photos of it when I gave it to him, and that was that. And I've never seen the hat since. So yeah, I have no idea how it's wearing. I hope I remember to tell him not to put it in the washing machine, because otherwise he's going to end up with a tiny hat. We'll see. And then the very last one is a hat I talked about on my video from last week, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but it's the hipster hat by Petite Knit, and this was a gift for my little brother. When I went to visit him a couple months ago, we went to a yarn shop, and he loved an alpaca yarn, and he loved it so much he was just not putting it back on the shelf, and I decided I could knit a hat out of it for him. And love the pattern. It's very simple. As a beginner pattern, would recommend. You will learn like ribbing. It's 2x2 ribbing. The one thing that I would say is that the cast on is a little bit tricky. So to do a beautiful 2x2 rib cast on, you do like an Italian or tubular cast on, and then you have to do double knitting and then twist the stitches so that the 2x2 looks very neat. And if that's the very first thing you're going to do in knitting, I think that is asking for a little bit too much. So as a very first project, maybe not. As a second project, yes, it's going to challenge you, but after that first bit, it's easy breezy. Would recommend, would knit again. Again, one pattern that I would actually knit again. It's very fast, it's very easy, it's mindless, and it looks very professional. The end result is just really, really lovely. And my little brother was very happy with it. So yeah, there we go. This was a much more expensive project because that yarn was a hand-dyed yarn that was not just alpaca but also silk and cashmere. So it was extremely soft, very, very nice, but it was also €42. So not exactly cheap. So most expensive hat I've ever made. Total cost for this project is €46.88, and it was on the needles for 5 days. There you go. That was it. It is the evening. I still want to do a bit of knitting before I need to pack before I travel tomorrow. There's not going to be a lot of knitting this evening. Anyway, this was it for this week. Next week, it will be just a normal knitting update once again, like every 2 weeks. And then the week after, I think we'll have to look at what new patterns have been released on Ravelry. I've already seen a few that are really, really beautiful. I already have enough yarn and patterns to knit for the rest of the year, so this is a little bit like torture, but I think we can go through the favorites. So that will be for in 2 weeks. If you want to make sure to see those videos appear in your feed, then you might want to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. If you are already, then thank you so much. That is lovely of you to do. And if you've enjoyed this video, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or what you are currently knitting on. It's always nice to hear a bit of what other people are doing, and then this feels a little bit less one way. If you want more regular updates, you can also follow me on Instagram. It's yarn at the barn with dots in between. It's also in the description down below. I don't really post a lot of posts, but usually in my stories, just like little updates of how the projects are going, how the horses are misbehaving and stuff like that. And then that will be it for this week. So the only thing left to do is to wish you a lovely weekend or a lovely week if you see this a little bit later, and happy knitting. Bye bye.